You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It's takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks, good evening. It's Thursday. That's right, it is Friday Eve. I am Rick Robinson. We are on KLRNradio.com right now. We are live. This is the Jim and Rick Show. We got a later start than usual because, as usual, Skype hates us. The good news is I found, thanks to, someone who shall remain nameless because he keeps getting kicked off Twitter, but you know him as the Opulent Amish. He found a video link that I've been looking for that will help me get Discord set up with a channel that the host can use. And the awesome thing about that is, as long as you're invited in, you could even use your phone. So even if nobody has Skype or anything, we can still have people call in. So I'm going to be playing with that this weekend and basically tell Skype to go fly a kite unless I have a guest that doesn't know how to use Discourse. But that's why we got a late start, because for some reason Skype was being really, really weird. I know for some reason this always happens with me and Jess, or me and Jen, and Jess and Dan, and pretty much everybody else, because if Skype's involved, it seems like it sucks lately. But anyway, so enough about Skype and how much I despise them right now. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been spending a few days by the pool. Sorry about Tuesday. With Memorial Day and the long weekend, and my sister came in, and we had this whole welcome thing for her tour. For everybody that doesn't know, like, my sister's on a national Broadway tour, and they are they're going to be in our home state and in Texas and Oklahoma the next few weeks as part of their tour. So my parents were hosting. I helped organize a party barge party on the lake, and I was thinking it was Monday. I just was not even thinking it was Tuesday. So I just completely slipped, and Rick's texting me going like, "Are you okay? Just want to make sure what's going on." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. So my bad, y'all, but we were having a really good time.
Yeah, it dawned on me like at about 8:15 or so, because Dan and I had been texting back and forth almost all day in the little group text that we three have together.
Yeah.
And I realized you weren't answering, and I'm like, maybe I should send her a private text and make sure she's all right. And you didn't answer that one. So I go back into the text with me and Dan, and I'm like, I bet you money Jen thinks it's Monday. And sure enough, like 5 minutes later, you're like, holy crap, I so did think it was Monday.
And to be fair, I was just like, I was really busy, but I was also having such a good time. So I organized this boat party, and we were out on the water. You know, I left my house at like 9 a.m. and was at the water by like 10. And we did this whole party barge thing. And then we brought everybody back to my parents' house and swam in the pool. And I, helped my mom and my parents like with a whole food spread and like all of this stuff. And so it was a great time, but I was nonstop and I hardly ever had my phone. So I just really hadn't checked. And then all of a sudden it kind of dawned on me, and I went and I like looked up, and I was like, wait a second. And it was like 9:10 or 9:15. And I was like, wait a second, something's wrong. And I just went and looked at my phone and was like, oh crap, it's Tuesday. So, well, it happens.
That's all right. I was like, you know what? It feels like a Monday anyway, because, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but with me pulling double duty at the day job right now, it's just like every day has felt like a Monday. Like today, it just dawned. It didn't even dawn on me till I got in the door when I got home. I was like, holy crap, at least tomorrow's Friday. But the worst thing is, so we didn't do half the stuff we were supposed to do on Tuesday. So then Tuesday night, Well, actually, I guess early Wednesday morning, like 3 a.m. I wake up and it feels like somebody's stabbing me in the eyeball with an ice pick. I had like one of the worst migraines that I've had in like 6 or 7 months. The weird thing is I've had like 2 of them back to back within a couple of weeks, and I'm like, I really thought it was my bad teeth causing these, so maybe I need to go to the doctor and find out why in the hell I'm still having migraines. But I haven't gotten around to that yet. I just stayed in bed all day Wednesday and got yelled at for not going to work.
Yeah, well, sometimes you need it.
Yeah, I mean, people always give me crap, but I don't think there's like people that I work with that have no idea that I'm basically working the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs right now. They're like, why are you always out sick? I'm like, because I put in 24-hour work days in 24-hour days. You know, when am I sleeping?
Yeah.
Very rarely. But anyway, so enough about me. Because there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. So
Yes.
I hope that you finally got a chance to check out Roseanne before they canceled it.
Well, I did get to see a little bit of a few episodes. I didn't get to watch everything, but there are a couple places where it's still archived on demand. So I was kind of thinking that I might do a little bit of that before they remove that, because they're Viacom's yanking it from syndication too, which is so. I mean, I understand it was that comment. It was just utterly gross and ridiculous.
It was
and
dumb, but
it was so stupid. But to completely, and she is the face and the name of the show, so I understand the network's decision that that's what they felt was appropriate for that kind of situation, and and I believe that they have the right to make those decisions. I do agree that definitely leaning into with her being so heavily Trump supporting personally, and then also the way that they've written it on the show and everything, that definitely comes into play a lot more than someone's politics would, that where that wasn't the case, or where they were left leaning. However, I like all private speech and things I do, and private business, I do support their actions that they feel that they feel necessary, whether or not I agree with them or not. What I do find hard, though, is that it doesn't just condemn her; it condemns the entire cast and crew. And when you're talking about pulling old shows from syndication, a lot of those people still get residual off of that. Several of the actors do, I know for sure, and a few of the writers and things like that. And so then you're pulling an additional source of income from them when they had nothing to do with this and did absolutely nothing wrong, just to punish Roseanne, which I don't find to be the best course of action. But it carries her name and has her face, so they're going to do what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been catching all kinds of flack for this because I've been the guy kind of hanging around in middle of the roadville. I don't blame ABC for doing what they did. I really don't. I do think it's crazy to pull our shows from syndication, especially since I was talking to somebody today who told me that they looked on TV Land schedule for this coming weekend because, that's one of the biggest rerun places, and they saw The Cosby Show on in Roseanne's place. Now, I haven't checked the schedule yet, so I can't confirm that, but if that's true, that's crazy. Because dude just got convicted of all kinds of bad stuff. And
also, I don't think the Cosby Show should be off the air. And when a bunch of people pulled that at the very beginning of all that stuff, I was like, this is stupid, though. I understand, again, it carries his name. It is his face. But that show was so much more than just him. Even, it was the whole family. And he's done some terrible things, as have actually quite a few actors. And are we going to yank every Weinstein film? I mean, how do we go about this if we're going to start punishing for certain people's sins that are involved in the projects? I think it's not really fair to the other people that worked really hard and have not done those kinds of things, that have not, been awful, have not been abusers, who have not been racist, who have not, whatever it is, that's the thing that I think is unfortunate when you start getting into that mindset and doling out the punishments in that way.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, for me, it's hard for me to fathom that we now live in a country where you can't say stuff without... I mean, because here's the thing. For everybody that's pounding their chest and doing their victory lap over Rosie, if you were working for a company who saw something that you put on social media and suddenly they decided you were terminated, you'd be talking to an attorney and screaming invasion of privacy. That's problem number one, because I've seen that happen, because I've actually been in upper management before. I've seen people that have been fired for social media postings, and the first thing they do is try to run to an attorney, because they don't understand that the world has changed. So for everybody that's doing the victory lap about it, I have problems with it. And again, it's not because Rosie's the voice of conservatism. Rosie at best is a populist, much like Donald Trump. She's also had a lot of, over the years, what I would consider communist or socialist ideas. So does she like Trump? Maybe. Is she a conservative? No. But my other problem with this is not only do we have the issue of basically she's not a conservative, but she was playing one on TV. It's also the fact that there's this complete and total double standard, because anytime the left says anything that's completely crazy, they get away with it. That's like this whole thing with I can't even think of her name right now. Yeah, Wanda Sykes, the first person to basically openly come out after the Roseanne tweet, and she was like, I will not be returning to the Roseanne show. This is blah, 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 blah. This is the same person who said she was watching the 2016 elections and couldn't believe that we elected an orangutan.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when back to where you said, like, you know, did she support Trump? Yes. Is she a conservative? No. I mean, I think it's really important to remember this, and I think that we all on both sides, and it's just so much easier for the left because almost every celebrity is left leaning, so they don't have to quite, I don't know, prop them up as much and like latch on to them as much as we do, because they've got the media, they've got Hollywood, they've got directors, they've got actors, they've got musicians, they've got dancers, they've got everybody, and pretty much that ever gets to hold a microphone or take a stage. So it's part of the reason why conservatives and the right in general kind of fall into a little bit of the trap of kind of latching on to these celebrities that come out like in support of a politician we like or a policy we like, or even just say that they are right leaning or whatever. And then we kind of really hitch our wagons to them and do or die. And guess what that usually means? Die. So Ben Shapiro said it earlier today, and I agree with him. Like, okay, it's really cool that she's like standing up for certain things. She was standing up for Israel. She's been, you know, obviously she's been vocal about Trump. You know, Kanye West has been vocal about individualism, that he agrees with Trump on a lot of things, that he believes in, you know, in the individual and personal responsibility. These are all good things, and they do go along with some of what it means to be a conservative, but it does not a conservative make. And hitch your wagon, you know, live by Roseanne. This is what Shapiro said: live by Roseanne, die by Roseanne. Live by Kanye, die by Kanye. And we've had countless others. And that's part of the problem here, is that it kind of feeds into the media's whole thing. So she was the one that was kind of being lauded a little bit, and then she, of course, crashes and burns. And so now that whole thing, you know, she gets to be the representative for what they kept saying was like the typical Trump crazy racist. And so she takes everybody down that latched onto her with them. And that may not be fair, but it's what happens, and it's the way it gets viewed. And you know, it's a dang shame.
So it's funny that you mentioned, you know, her taking a lot of people down with her, because I noticed something that somebody was putting out today, and I meant to try to do a search on it when I came home, and I forgot. So I'm going to try to do it right now real quick. But I saw somebody put out something today that they had run a Google search for the California Republican Party, and one of the things that they saw that Google had put in there was one of the ideals of the California Republican Party was Nazism.
Yeah,
and that was apparently a new addition. So it's just one of those things where, I mean, you know, again, we have to be careful who we align ourselves with, because, you know, we had all these alt-right morons that were pulling for Trump, and that was one of the reasons why I kept saying that Trump really, really needed to disavow them, and he never did, because now we have people on the left that are trying to find anything they can to basically swing the tide on the elections. Because I got to tell you, folks, I've been watching some of the numbers, and I've been listening and hanging around with folks like Chad Alexander on KOKC, who eats, breathes, and lives politics even more than I do. And the poll numbers at the national level are astounding, because for a midterm election, right now, everybody that they poll nationally, Republicans are within 5 points. For a midterm election on a down election year, that's crazy, because the last time we were within 5 points on a midterm, we picked up 10 seats.
Yeah. I all of this is like, everything I feel like just keeps swinging like crazy, and we're so up and down. I don't even know how to predict anything at this point. I know what you're saying, some of the past kind of stuff to go off of, but man, that we have not seen anything like this presidency.
Yeah, but I mean,
we've not seen anything like this political climate, and I'm just like, everything keeps getting turned upside down, and all the expectations keep getting, flipped. And so, whatever. It's just such a wild time in politics, but it's so crazy. And the Democrats are so confident, but then a lot of the Republicans are so confident. And so, I don't know. Either way, I think it's just going to make it more divided no matter what happens.
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the guy that actually came up with the catchphrase, "It's the economy, stupid," which is one of the things that helped propel Clinton to beat Bush 41 during his re-election bid. He actually put out an article recently where he was talking about, because everybody's been talking about the economy. Because, again, we don't hear about this in the media, but we have the lowest African-American unemployment rate in history, lowest Hispanic unemployment rate in history, lowest all-over employment number rates since about 1973. Things are, they were on an uptick until the tariffs. We'll talk about those probably in a little bit too. But the funny thing is, the guy that actually coined that phrase was quoted in an article saying the other day that it's not about the economy anymore. Now it's the polarization, stupid. Because everything and everyone is so polarized, and they're so deeply entrenched that nobody has any give anymore. Nobody's willing to compromise. Nobody's willing to come together. Nobody's willing to talk. It's like we used to, during election cycles, and I've talked about this because I've been doing this now for nearly a decade. I can't believe it's been that long. But we used to basically pick up our banners, march off to war, go through the election cycle, put the banners down, try to put the pieces back together, come back together, and at least try to do what we could to make the country a better place. We don't do that anymore. We're still in campaign mode from 2016, and we're about to hit the midterm campaigns.
Right. Well, and it's because of this kind of thing that's happened, and it does happen on both sides, but you find it a lot, especially with this most recent election happening from the left to the right, that everyone, for instance, with this Roseanne thing, everyone's Roseanne that supports Trump. Everyone's that, so when one person does something, when those dork idiot jerks marched in khakis with their little torches, with their little limp noodle arms, and walked through and acted like they were badasses when they, basically pissed themselves at the sign of first fight, all of a sudden that's represented. That's the Republican Party. That's the conservative right. And that kind of overreaching, broad brushing it does a real disservice to the entire political atmosphere. And that's where we are now. It's like everybody's that. Whatever it is that happened bad to that one person did, or one small group of people did, that's everyone. Young white male, totally disturbed, goes and shoots up a school. That's all white Christian men. Well, he wasn't Christian. Doesn't matter. He's white. Might as well be Christian. Came from Judeo-Christian background, so he's got to be Christian. That all white men. Oh, well, actually, he believed, nope, doesn't matter, must be right. Got to be right. He had a gun, so he likes guns, so he's right. And he's representative because you all want our kids to die. Well, no. And so all of that is just making it that much more divisive, and is making it almost impossible to have any sort of real progress and conversation or any rational, logical, political discourse.
Careful, you said progress. Some radical rightist is going to think that you're a Nazi now.
I know. See, that happens too. Yeah, it's not gonna, I just don't see how it's gonna get any better for a while now.
Yeah, again, the only thing that gives me hope is the fact that I've been listening to much smarter people than me talking about the numbers. Because, I mean, I'm a numbers guy. I can take them apart. I can put them back together. But I'm still learning some of the trends. So what I've been doing is following along and interacting with people that have been doing this even longer than I've been. The one thing that gives me hope about some of the numbers that I'm seeing is the fact that the national polls are usually skewed 3-1 liberal when they take the numbers. So the fact that we're normally, I'm not saying in these particular polls because I haven't been able to see the breakdowns, but on average, we've been determining that usually, especially the more liberal papers, will poll liberals about 3-1 versus conservatives. I know that I've been doing this now for forever, and I can't remember the last time anybody even called to ask me a question. And I have a landline. That's the biggest thing is, one of the things that skews the polls now is they're only allowed to call people with landlines. How many people in the country even still have landlines? Well, I happen to be one of them.
Well, there are think tanks and things, though, and like campaigns that are calling people with cell phones because so many people are registering, that's their point of contact now. So I actually have talked to quite a few people, and I've been asked, I thought, pretty fair questions. It didn't seem too heavily, leaning one way. It was like, there were some that were a little loaded, but they gave me the option of saying, they was like, do you agree with this a lot, agree with this a little, not agree at all, disagree a lot, whatever. And then it was like, and then she was like, you can say neutral or like a little of both. You see it both ways. And I'm like, okay, I see both sides, and she was like, okay, cool. And I've had a couple surveys like that. And I can't remember what one of them was called. One of them was definitely for a policy or a policy institute out of Dallas that checks the pulse of right and left and the Democrat and the Republican Party and happening and the people that fall either way in what they believe in Texas. So that was actually a really neat one. And then the other one was a national thing and it was just obnoxious. But then the other thing that, all these people are doing now is texting for campaigns. So I keep getting the Beto for Senate texts, and if anybody follows me on Twitter, I often share them because I respond to them and I'm kind of lead them on in conversation. And I'm like, why does Beto think it's okay to kill babies? They're like, well, that's not really what he thinks. He just believes that. I'm like, yeah, he's fine with dead infants. And they don't know how to respond. So that's been kind of fun. But you are right. Typically, like, people are not getting. They're saying that it's called, and even when they break down the numbers, they're like, oh, well, we polled, 3,800 that were registered Democrats and 825 that were registered Republicans. So you're not getting an accurate poll there. I mean, it's just silly.
Yeah, and part of it is the media is learning how to push the narrative, because if they can put out polls that show 5, 10, 15 percentage points one way or the other, and it's the way that they want. This goes back to stuff that I've said before. When you start looking at things like polls or studies, you need to pay attention to where the funding is coming from for the polls or the studies, because people don't pay for results they don't want anymore. I've actually seen that happen because I have a friend who actually works for a company that does a lot of scientific studies, and he actually lost a client once because they paid him to do a job. He gave them the straight-up results. They fired him and refused to pay him for his work because it wasn't the results they were looking for.
I mean, that's ridiculous, right?
I mean, but it's just the way things are anymore. That's one of the things that, and I've heard other people say this, and I'm just going to come out and say it too. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press, when this stuff was first envisioned, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of newspapers. There were newspapers in pretty much every town across the colonies, and then eventually what became the first 13 United States. And the funny thing is about those newspapers, they didn't hide their slants. They basically told you, we're a liberal newspaper. We believe this, this, and this. We're a conservative, or however, whatever terms they used back then. They didn't hide it. There were like 3 or 4 different newspapers in the same town with different slants because everybody.
Beyond that, everybody printed, like, a lot of people that had any sort of, if they had something that they wanted to say or they wanted to have published, particularly those that were wanting to influence policy and influence their neighbors, they'd go publish pamphlets. pamphlets were being circulated like crazy from very one-sided points of view. And sometimes you get a team of people that would try to do a back and forth in order to have the kind of like pros and cons of each side that then the public could decide or whatever. And those are being circulated like crazy from, anyone that from the likes of, the very brilliant, Hamilton or Franklin or Madison, down to Joe Schmo farmer down the road that's just like, this is BS that you want to, have this kind of thing that's going to affect my farm. So there was just a lot of, and I guess you could kind of in a way say that we do that with our blogs now. Instead of newspapers, instead of pamphlets, we now have blogs that we do that with and we try to get circulated. But yeah, I mean, they did not hide it at all. And people really want to talk about divisive politics. I urge you to really go read some of the direct letters people wrote to politicians and to each other, and things that the politicians said and wrote on record to each other and during campaigns. There is some ugly stuff. And folks, let's not forget that people, because of politics, often dueled and died. So, while this is a very divisive time and the rhetoric is increasingly harsh and sometimes hateful, and it seems like there's no way to ever find middle ground, this has gone up and down throughout the course of our history. And in a lot of ways, besides maybe some of the comments today, the F-less C word, in a lot of ways, we're not even coming close to the kind of absolute vitriol that they were giving each other back in the late 1700s and into the 1800s.
Well, honestly, my take on that is I think a lot of the vitriol because it was crazy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there were like campaigns where people would go around with wooden effigies of their opponents and let people beat the crap out of it to make them feel better. There was all kinds of crazy things they used to do back in the day. But the funny thing is, when it came right down to it, yes, they were not always civil with one another, but they also knew at one point if they pushed things too far, they were going to wind up having to try to shoot the other person. So I think that was something that actually kind of stopped some of the stuff that we're dealing with now. And I'm not saying that we need to go back to dueling in the street, so please don't start sending me hate mail. But what I am saying...
I'm so for it. I'm so for it.
I could hit what I'm aiming at, so I'm not necessarily saying that I'm opposed to it
I
want
Bernie to challenge Ted Cruz to a duel. I'm serious. That's basically what their town hall was on healthcare. But I want a duel. I'm just playing. But it does kind of seem like it would solve a lot of problems with a lot of spineless politicians.
Well, I mean, that's like the dude that was caned on the Senate floor. You want to talk about how crazy politics are now? There was a dude that literally nearly got beat to death with a cane because one of the senators took offense to what he was saying and basically told him if he didn't sit down, he was going to knock him down. Dude didn't sit down, so he got the crap kicked out of him with a cane. And again, I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but part of the problem that we have today is we don't get taught these things in school anymore. Nobody knows about half the things that have happened in our history, and if they do know about them, they've been watered down to the point where nobody even knows what the hell we're talking about anymore. And we need to understand our history, because then we can look at the things that are going on now through the lens of history and go, you know what, things are bad. But at the end of the day, at least we're not killing each other. We're just yelling at each other on social media until somebody gets an account banned.
Exactly. That's very true.
I mean, you might as well call Twitter the new playground for dueling, because now it's not a duel to the death. It's a duel to see who's standing last and doesn't get banned. Unfortunately, my co-host seems to lose that battle quite a bit.
Yeah. I try not to. So I've been fairly successful so far, knock on wood.
Oh, I guess I should say other co-hosts. Sorry. You actually have. Have you ever even been in Twitmo?
I've
been like twice.
I've had to delete a tweet one time years ago, and then I have been. And people call shadow banning all sorts of different things. I definitely was shadow banned for 24 hours. Here's my definition of what happened to me. When I would, if you followed me, you could click on my handle and go to my TL and see everything I tweeted just fine. You could choose to respond to me on one of my tweets and I would never get the notification. But I could go to the tweet and then see that you tweeted back at me. but I would never be notified that you did. I could talk in DMs and I could tweet at people, but they wouldn't see me responding to them either. So someone had, and the way I really figured this out was because someone had tweeted me and was like, hey, Jen, blah, 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 blah. And I responded. And then about 3 or 4 hours later, hello, Jen, I see you're tweeting other stuff. What's up? I'll just DM you. And I'm like, I totally responded twice, took a couple screenshots, sent it to that person. And they were like, oh my gosh, I never got a notification that you replied. And I'm like, well, I never got a notification that you did it to me either. I just happened to see it on my feed. That's the only reason I knew. So it was basically, you become invisible in that way. It's not that your account gets shut or locked down or that no one can see it. It's just you become invisible in the way in which you don't get notified if someone responds to you, and you don't get and they don't get notified if you respond to them. So that's happened to me one time, and it was 24 hours on the dot that then people saw my replies again, on the dot. So it was definitely a thing, but never got an email, never was told a word, tried to contact support. They never responded. And so those are the only two things I've had happen. I've tried to go back and look through and make sure with some of the more strict rules now that I don't have too much out there that would, I cuss and stuff, and I'm never going to not cuss, but I don't cuss like at people like, you stupid bee, or, something like that. So I've tried to also go clean up a little bit of things. I really didn't have all that much to do comparatively to what some people say. Even though I cuss all the time, I don't name call a whole lot. I just do like, are you effing kidding me? That kind of thing. And so I hopefully I don't have too much that someone could capitalize and report on, because that's what trolls are doing now. It's trying to find old tweets to report and get you suspended based on new rules.
What I don't understand about that is when stuff like that gets reported, shouldn't Twitter go back and say, oh, that wasn't a violation when this was tweeted in 2012?
Exactly. Well, they should. They should. But I will say that I've had a few friends that are what I would call more left-leaning, one of which is absolutely left-leaning. And he even has left in his handle. But we get along really well for various reasons, and one of them being that he is fairly pro-life. And so he tolerates the other things, as do I, because we agree on a very fundamental thing that matters a lot to both of us.
You wouldn't have to be referring to Left Dial, would you?
No, it's not Left Dial. It's someone different. But I know everyone always brings up Left Dial. And I don't want to out this person because they do have a fairly small account, and I don't want to get him flooded with like new conservative followers that may not always be like genuine in dealing with him, because he is really respectful. So because of some stuff that was happening with some of my friends, and I had told him about it, he did a test, and he basically did 2 or 3 things that specifically got some of the people you and I know locked or suspended. And he did those same things, but he did them like at a Republican senator or at someone who was right-leaning, knowing that his account would then be looked at and he's from the left. And he got locked too. So I think at least initially this new standard, they are having keywords, and they're doing auto locks on things if someone reports it. Because what he did was he tweeted it out, and then he had a bunch of us that were all in a DM together. He had us all report it on purpose to see if he would get locked, being a lefty going after a righty. And he got locked within like 6 or 7 minutes. So I think it's kind of an automated thing, and then they go back and sort through it and look at it. And unfortunately, that usually takes a while. But we just wanted to see, he wanted to see. And so I'm happy to know that. And then I've known a couple other people that have had kind of a similar experience. So some of these things, the name calling is going to be fairly standard across the board. Now, I'm not talking about blue checks. Blue checks might be a whole different deal. They have different rules. But for us regular folks, if you're in a fight with someone and they seem like the type that are going to report, just don't call them a name. It doesn't matter if all it is you big dummy. They are flagging that crap, and they're calling it hateful. And just try to stray away from it if you want to keep your account, and especially if you're arguing with trolls that seem like the type that are just going to load on you.
I just use 14-syllable words because I know they can't Google.
Nice.
Well, I mean, nobody's going to bother to look up the phrase monosyllabic prepubescent troglodyte. because they're not even going to know what the hell I just said.
Yeah, and there are things that are like, that are triggers. Like there are things that they haven't put out a list, but it's pretty obvious are on the list. It's kind of a lot of very obvious words that you could think of, including other things that are just like, could be considered derogatory to a woman, especially like hoe or slut or, something like that. In addition to the other ones. And the other one is my favorite one they've picked up on apparently, and have now had people delete tweets using it. And that makes me very sad because it's a hybrid and it comes in very handy sometimes. And I don't even know, our director might get mad if I say it on air, but I'm going to say it anyways. Slunt. And that one apparently has been flagged now because a couple people have had to delete tweets with it in it.
Yeah, but Ordy actually picked a ban up off of that one. That's his account's gone again because of using that word.
Yeah, I do think that some of his there was like a series of several things, but definitely that one was one of the ones that was majorly flagged. And I'm like, man, they used to not look at that one because it wasn't a standard one. But
that makes me
it's getting harder and harder to kind of even just argue with people if they choose to report. If they're the types that choose to report and get all their friends to report, you can make almost anything look like an attack or look like harassment. They call it harassment. And it's like, well, you responded back 25 times. Well, whatever, you're harassing me. No, you keep responding and we keep having a go round. So that's not harassment. If you've asked me to leave you alone and stop tweeting you, okay, maybe you can get by on that. But, there are certain types out there they get into that place and then they get all their friends to report you. And in that situation, almost no tweet is safe, which sucks.
Well, yeah, that's what's happening with Dan. He now has like this group of 4 or 5 people that once they get an account down, they'll just randomly go to the people that Dan knows and be like, hey, I miss Dan. What's his handle now? Somebody will be stupid enough to tell him, and then next thing you know, that account's gone. But one of the other things that drives me crazy about this is the whole reporting multiple accounts things. Because Dan, as far as I know, other than the show account that we both have access to, that we use from time to time, right now he's using it pretty much full time. But, other than the show account, he's never really had overlapping accounts. What they start reporting him for is having multiple accounts that he's using for harassment purposes, and they just report tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet. I don't know if they're grabbing stuff from other accounts and saying, look, here this is proof that this is him too, and the algorithm is just like, okay, whatever, you're gone. Because one of his accounts now is completely permabanned. He's banned so bad now he can't make an account using any device that Twitter has a record of, because if he tries, the second it's created, it says, I'm sorry, this account is locked.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, and the multiple accounts. I get the multiple accounts thing for harassment, but some people start reporting it not only because of just they can, but they seriously are like, well, no, it says you can't have multiple accounts. And I had someone try to report me and say, well, you've got Misfits Politics and you've got Jay Homestead, and that's a violation of Twitter. No, it's a group account for a site and for our group and for a blog, and it's absolutely different than me having 2 accounts, like me having an account and a sock in order to be able to go troll and harass people. And to be honest, I have in that case I have a handful of accounts because I do it for different reasons for different groups that I deal with their social media. So that kind of thing, that can be convoluted.
So here's my thing with that, because, if accessing multiple accounts is a violation of Twitter terms of service, why can you use programs that allow you to access multiple accounts at the same time?
Well, right, to be able to switch back and forth between them. No, it's so silly. And I like I said, I understand the point of having multiple accounts when you're only having it for the sole purpose of being able to go harass and troll people. But when you can demonstrate that that's not the case and you're using them for either different purposes or they're never even overlapping to begin with, then there should be no discussion there. It should just be a pass.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's to the point now where he's like, I don't even know if I'm going to mess with Twitter anymore. And I know of at least 2 other people recently that have just said, you know what, I'm done. Roseanne's son, who I actually happen to know because I was helping him with his podcast for a little bit when they first came over to K98 after he got in trouble and lost his syndicated show because his mom was being a douche. Because, yeah, she was the one paying for the airtime. So this is one of the times when I knew for a fact Roseanne wasn't a conservative, because this was back when she was still, somewhat trying to make money off of TV and things like that. And he would say stuff, and she would be like, and call on his show, call him a dumbass, and you can't say that stuff, I'm paying for this airtime, I'm going to get you yanked, and blah, 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 blah. So then he wound up changing his Twitter handle, and he's like, not Roseanne's son, and went by a completely different name, and then started a podcast that I kind of helped him with for a while, here and there, because I met him through Bunny. And then now he's on Instagram, because he's like, my Twitter account got locked, I'm not messing with this anymore. He said it's not worth it. He said I'm not going to be on Twitter to pretend that I'm somebody I'm not. I'm just going to find another platform where I can be me. And I've known lots of people that have gone to other platforms, like Instagram or whatever other weird ones they're using. I don't know. Instagram makes my head hurt. Twitter was hard enough to figure out. I'm not trying to learn Insta. I'm just not.
I love Instagram, but I don't use it for anything other. I did snag, I've snagged Misfit stuff on pretty much all the platforms that I can, but I only use it for my personal stuff, and then that's a lot more enjoyable. But hey, I had one little article I thought you might like.
Sure.
So this is by Amelia Hamilton on Red State, and it says, college students freak out after accidentally rejecting socialism. So students at Davidson College were offered the chance to give socialism a try with their GPAs and soundly rejected it, then quickly retreated to their safe spaces when they realized what they'd done. So basically a couple of students from the group's chapter of Young Adults for Freedom, short for YAF, not to be confused with Young Americans for Freedom, they posed as the Students for Educational Equality, and they circulated a petition, asking for people, like, if they would be in favor of taking a few points off of the GPA of, like, the high scoring students, top performing students, and then redistribute them to the lowest performing students so that everyone could graduate. So everyone thought it was insane. There was a professor that was willing to go along with it, which is very questionable there. But then they had like a lot of questions. They were like, would this be every semester? Why should they be docked points when they worked hard, when these people maybe just partied all semester, they didn't try as hard, didn't show up for class, all that kind of thing. Well, then when it came out that that it was actually just this experiment, they were really upset when they realized they had accidentally, been like, no, that's not fair. Socialism sucks. So they called for a teach-in at the student union to discuss their feelings on the matter. In the video of this event, students denounced the YAF effort as inflammatory and unfair, making light of socioeconomic disparity of campus. The YAF chapter responded on their Facebook page saying, it is simply an illustration of fruits of your labor, and you're being able to decide what happens with those fruits, the statement continued. Regardless of your level of income or academic achievements, what is relevant is that the fruit is yours, and you should be able to decide what you do with it. Davidson Young Americans for Freedom stands for limited government and free enterprise, and we stand by our video. So there's a link for it, which I'm probably going to put on my Twitter here in just a little bit. But isn't that hilarious?
It is. I mean, but that's part of the thing. The only reason these people are espousing this crap anymore because that's what they're told that they should do. Socialism is the grand experiment now to all the leftist proggy professors and everybody else. That's like Bernie Sanders, the guy who was telling me I shouldn't have the house that I have because it's too big, and he has 3.
Yes, absolutely. No, and by the way, give those up. Don't even give them up. And you better not freaking profit off of them. How about you invite underprivileged people to come and live in it and keep the lights on and keep paying for it? And don't make them pay a dang thing. And that fridge better be stocked, and there better be keys for a car for them to drive and use at their will. I mean, come on, Bernie. Really put your money where your mouth is.
I mean, that's been my stance all along. And funny thing is, he never would answer me anytime I tried to get his attention to say, hey, maybe you should put your money where your mouth is. Because you're the one with 3 houses while everybody else is going broke. That's, I don't remember if I talked about this. I don't think I have, at least not on this show. But somebody that I used to really, really admire back when I ran in different circles, which was Jesse Duplantis, who I actually met in person a couple of times, who is, for those of you who don't know, he's a preacher, put out on his TV show the other day that he was praying that God and his followers would help him purchase a $54 million jet in cash so that he didn't have to use any of his own money or take out a loan. The dude already has 3 other planes, for one. So if you really want this $54 million jet, maybe one of the things that you could do is sell off these other 3 jets, see how much money you got left, and figure out the rest of it on your own. Second of all, as somebody that's been a pastor, if I had access to $54 million, I wouldn't be buying a jet. I'd be feeding the homeless and taking care of other things, not buying a jet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And the sad thing is, I used to really, really look up to Jesse Duplantis. And I mean, it's the same thing I guess happens with televangelists as happens to radio show hosts and politicians.
Yeah.
When you do the same thing for too many years, eventually you start believing your own press. And
yeah.
then
I think that's very true.
It's just disturbing because I'm just sitting here going, because my preacher has a running joke in the service. And it's really kind of a teachable moment if you let it be a teachable moment. Because he's always like, look, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to basically make sure that you're here so that God can change you. So if how you start praying to God is saying, hey, God, I really want $1 million. Or, hey, God, I think I should have a Lamborghini. If you really think God's going to give you those things, then you should go ahead and pray for those things. But what I hope happens is along the way, maybe your focus changes so you learn to not pray for yourself and maybe pray for others. That is a really teachable moment if you allow it to be. But when you have somebody who already has $44 million from his daddy's oil money, saying that he needs $54 million more to go buy a jet because he doesn't want to take out a loan for it and he thinks God should make his followers do it, the scary thing is the dude's not wrong because he's got so many people that tune into his TV show they could each give about $2 and he'd have all the money that he needed. But at the same time, if you have that kind of access to where you can raise that kind of money, why are you not using it to change the world for the better instead of buying yourself a bigger, better jet that would allow you to go nonstop to Russia? What the hell do you need to go nonstop to Russia for?
Well, I don't know. Does he have any Trump connections?
Maybe. Speaking of nonstop,
maybe he's part of collusion.
So speaking of nonstop, this actually made me kind of excited today. And no, they're not a sponsor, so I'm giving them this for free. But I just found out Southwest Airlines is now doing nonstop flights between Oklahoma City and Washington, D.C., which should make CPAC,
I heard that.
Which should make CPAC 2019 a lot more manageable for me now, because Southwest is usually much more cheap than anyone else, and now I only have to worry about deplaning one time each way. So
yeah, absolutely.
For those of you who are wondering why that is such a big deal for me, I have difficulty getting around. I have a limp. Some of you don't know that. Jen's never met me in person, so I don't know if I've told her that before, but I walk with a limp. Why this is important?
I know.
But why this is important is because last year, my business partner and the station manager booked me on Delta Airlines last minute as a surprise to get me out to CPAC after I told her that I couldn't afford to go. She's like, we really need you here. I've got the money, so here's your ticket. And I'm like, but I didn't put in for the time off, and you've already bought me the ticket, so now I have to see if it's open. So luckily, there was enough for me to get there by basically late Thursday night, early Friday morning, but she put me on Delta and put me through Atlanta. I don't know if any of you have flown into Atlanta, but I'm from small town America. The airport in Atlanta is bigger than the town that I live in right now. It was insane. I was having to take a train to get to terminals inside the airport. I've never done that before. My gates were on the opposite sides of the building with like a 25-minute turnaround. I was literally turning purple, and people thought I was dying by the time I got to the gate because of how fast I was having to move. Because I'm old, I'm fat, and I limp. Imagine how much fun that was. Just saying. So nonstop service makes me really, really happy. Not to mention the fact that I still have friends that work for Southwest. I might be able to score a buddy pass to get there and back.
Woohoo!
Maybe.
That's awesome.
All right,
That
so
is
anyway.
cool.
All right, so
Well-
it's already after bottom of the hour, top of the hour, so we didn't even take a break this show, so we should probably say bye now.
I thought about it right at about 9:50, and then I went, meh, whatever.
Kind of
We'll just
pointless
finish this.
now.
Whatever. Well, yeah, y'all come find me on Twitter at jhomestead and Facebook JR Homestead. And then, as always, misfitspolitics.com. There's actually a really great piece that we put up for Memorial Day that's a cross post with our friend at Political Sock. He profiled this woman who was a young girl and then teenager during World War II. And surviving that as her family bounced around Europe trying to escape the occupation and witnessing atrocities. And then their journey to America, and eventually her journey to Texas, where she has set up residency on a river in Fort Worth where everyone knows her name and everyone loves her and her dog. And she basically holds court every day for her subjects, and they call her the mayor of the river. And so please check that out on misfitspolitics.com. It's such a touching story. It's so inspiring, and there just aren't many people like her left. So I think everyone would do well to read it.
Yeah, really good idea. Please go read it. Actually, folks, I'm calling an audible. I had planned on doing my show tonight, but I'm still struggling with some new medication to try to deal with these migraines that I had my doctor call in, but I think I'm going to have an appointment because it's not really working. And I have fluorescent lights everywhere, so I'm going to get out from underneath these lights before I start crying like a girl. I may wind up doing an extra show tomorrow night to make up for the fact that I didn't do one tonight. And next week, actually, because he just confirmed with me, next week in the America Off the Rails time slot, Chad Alexander is coming back to do a second show with me. I'm really, really jealous because he got to interview Tom Cole today. I have been bugging Tom Cole for months to come on my show. I can't get him to come on my show. Chad interviewed him today, and I really, really liked it. So I don't usually plug these guys, probably not as much as I should since I'm technically kind of sort of on staff over there, even if they never call me. But they had, it's a really great segment. If you have access to the internet, I suggest you go to kokcradio.com, I think is their website, and you can actually pull up the podcast version of it and listen to it. Actually, Chad and Tom Cole together are like an amazing team because they're both really, really political animals, and hearing them talk shop is kind of fun. So I do encourage you to do that. On that note, I am going to get out of here again because I feel the migraine trying to come back from being under these fluorescents for the last hour. So I'm going to go take another dose of my medicine, probably get some sleep so I can start over and do Friday. Yay, at least it's almost Friday. We're almost there. All right, so on that note, I am out of here. We are out of here. We will see you next week. Take care.